Today we're talking smokeless rifle powder. Guy Miner here from UltimateReloader.com. Today we're going to be talking about powder, to be specific about smokeless rifle powder, how to select the right kind for the cartridge you're trying to load, how to get to the right powder charge, and how to build our cartridge a little bit farther here in our basic reloading series. First thing that we're going to do, we take a look at powder, is we're going to try and choose an appropriate powder. To do that, go to your references. There's some great online references, and there's also some great published references. Today we're going to be working with the .308 Winchester, and I've chosen a 150 grain Sierra Game King hunting bullet. So we're going to take a look at the Sierra manual, and we're going to take a look at the Liman manual. Each one of these tells us a little bit of something different, and why you want to consult all these different manuals is because they may not agree, and you may need to use all of them to come up with your best shot at what's going to be a good load. Very important, select a powder that's appropriate for your cartridge. .308 Winchester has got a wide variety of powders that are suitable for it, from fairly slow burning to fairly fast burning, right there in kind of the middle of the burn rate chart, which is another good tool that we've got available. So I take a look here at the different recommendations, and I like to see what the bullet manufacturer recommends. In this case, Sierra, 150 grain bullet from the .308 Winchester. And I'm running on down here, and I take a look at Varget. And their loads start at 41.4 grains and go up to 44.8. Now I know from having burned enough .308 rounds to burn out, I think 4 barrels now, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 rounds each. I know Varget works really well, and I usually run it at a higher than that. Then I take a look here at Liman, and they are also running a 150 grain jacketed soft point. It's not the same bullet, but it's 150 grain jacketed soft point, and they're at 42.5 grains for a starting charge and 47 for max. Old sage advice, go ahead and start low and work your way up. The starting loads in these manuals are very safe, very easy to use, and you can do this by just loading one cartridge at various, load a cartridge at a low rate, load up a little higher, a little higher, a little higher, and up towards your desired velocity, your desired power level, and stop before you get to max or at max. Interestingly, a lot of powders respond really well to heavy charges, but there's usually a lower node. Gavin and I were just up shooting the other day with a 7mm PRC, and we found at a fairly low node, all of his bullets went in one little hole. It's very, very nice to see. So you got to take a look at all these different references, and that'll help you determine what your charge weight is. Basing on these references and on my experience with the .308, for us today, I settled on 44.5 grains, which we measured here on this Liman scale. And we'll get into how we're going to get to that here in just a minute. Another thing to take a look at when you're selecting your powder is to be aware of your case fill. If you're working with really fast burning powders, this applies mostly to pistol cartridges, but sometimes we use pistol powders in rifle cartridges. When you do that, you've got a large case capacity and a very small volume of powder. It is very possible to double charge that case, which will spike your pressures up to dangerous levels. So choose a powder that's going to get close to a 100% fill once you've got that bullet seated. Most of the time I find that the really accurate powder charges are those that fill up most of the case, very little airspace in there. Sometimes there's exceptions to that, but by and large, if you get 90% fill or better, you're on your way to a pretty reliable and accurate load. Something to think about. Several pointers here I want to get to around here. One, yes, I know Varget's hard to get. All powders are hard to find these days. It's better now than it was 6 months ago, and that was better than 6 months before that. The powders are coming back. It's nice to see. Things to take a look at. Why do I have blue tape here on my powder measure? Got my powder measure set up. It's full of Varget. I may walk away from this project and go do something else for a while, and I may come back and I may not remember what was I loading 308s or what? And it is so much nicer to just simply label it. Better yet is when you're done with your project for the time being, empty your powder measure back into the can. Then there's absolutely no mistake of what it is. It says Varget, it is Varget, you're good to go. Some of these powders look so similar that if you put them down next to each other, you can't tell the difference. But they burn very differently, and it's dangerous to get them mixed up like that. So label your stuff, be careful. I allow one kind of gunpowder on my loading bench at any time, never two, just one kind of gunpowder on there that I'm working with. All the other stuff gets put away. Same thing with bullets and primers. Whatever I'm using for that load is what's on the loading bench, not a lot of other extraneous stuff. Get that out of there. So before we charge our cases, we're going to take a look at Liman's powder measure, their powder trickler, and their powder scale, and we're going to find out how to adjust these. Pretty good pieces of gear, you'll see. One of the things that I really like is being able to remove the powder measure using this from the stand. Makes it very easy to pour our powder back in to the container when we're done with it. There we go. And that lets me see the baffle in there. The baffle is a nice feature. It comes standard on this, and it helps you throw more consistent powder charges. When I put this back on, it's interesting. I can choose, because of these little detents here, I can choose what angle I want it at. For this, to let you take a better look at it, I'm going to go ahead and turn it 90 degrees from where it was. You can have it set up pretty much any way you want. One of the nice things about this particular powder measure is it has both a coarse and a fine adjustment. So if you want to make a big change in the powder that you're throwing, we're going to use the coarse adjustment. I do that by loosening up this brass screw here, set screw, and then if I pull it out, it's going to dump more powder. If I push it in, it's going to dump less powder in. So I'm going to pull it out a bit here. There we go. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's coming out a bit. And then if I want to do a fine adjustment, I just tighten that back down and then screw it in or out. If I screw it in, it's going to pour less powder into our cartridge case, and if I screw it out, it's going to dump some more in. So we've loosened it up a bit from where it was set, and let's put some Varget in here and see how much we're throwing. Nice. Okay, before we dump anything, we need to set up our scale and make sure we've got that ready to go. Where it should be set right now is on 0. 0 on this end and 0 right here. And what we're looking to do is get it lined up with the 0 line here on the indicator. The way I do that is by turning this little wheel on the end. And that will actually raise the height here, so we've got a true 0. These little mechanical powder measures like this, I actually really like them. I use them probably at least as much, probably more than the electronic powder measures. So just out of curiosity, I wonder how much we are throwing here. Now, since I just set this, I'm going to give it a couple of throws. Get everything flowing through there just fine. There we go. Now let's see what we've got here. Oh my goodness, that looks heavy. Okay. 50 grains. No, it's way more than that. 75 grains, not quite. So this would be enough for a much larger case than the .308 Winchester cases we're working with right now. I need to drop it down some because what I'm looking for is 44.5. I just moved this piece here to 40. Now, this is marked, graduated here at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 grains. So I'm going to move it up here to 4 grains. So there's our 44, and then I want to get 44.5, so I'm going to move it a little bit farther here and come up to 44.5 grains. That's my target. Now honestly, at home, if I was doing this and it settled in at 44.4 grains or 44.6 grains, I'd be happy. That'd be fine with me. But we're going to try for this, getting this right on the nose. Okay, so that's too much, we know that. Let's go ahead and loosen this little brass screw, and then I'm going to push in on the coarse adjustment so that it will throw less powder. Who knows? That might be somewhere close. I'll throw a couple of charges here, again, to let the powder settle in to the new adjustment, the new setting. And let's see where we are in relationship to that 44.5 grains we want. Still a little heavy. Okay, fair enough. And that shows me the way it just settled real fast like that, that I'm enough heavier that I'm going to continue using the coarse adjustment for now, because I want to make a pretty big change. Let's see if that did it. We're getting closer. When it's not moving very much and it's not moving very fast, you're getting close to your target. So now I'm going to go ahead and just use the fine adjustment, and I'm going to go a full turn in, turn in a little bit there, about a turn and a quarter. I'm going to throw a couple, dump that back in the hopper. Light, but we're getting close. We're getting close enough that I'm going to use the powder trickler here to bring it on up. Now the powder trickler, by spinning this, it goes ahead and it drops a kernel or two at a time and can quickly bring that scale up to 0, or our 0 now being 44.5 grains. And there we are, 44.5 grains. So we've used the powder measure, we've used the trickler, we've used the scale, we're throwing the charge we want. I like to throw just a little bit under sometimes like this and then use the trickler to bring it on up. Honestly, with some powders, you can use this scale, or not the scale, excuse me, the measure, and throw very, very consistent charges, good enough for some very, very serious target work. I know people who've won matches doing that, just throwing the charge. That usually requires, for that kind of precision, some kind of a ball powder that really flows through these things very well. However, Varget does real well. I've shot some real good scores with that over the years. Now that we've set up our powder measure and scale, it's time to throw some charges. Yeah, it looks like we're a little bit light here, so what I'm going to do is use the powder trickler to bring it up. Now, in my own home shop, I have my Liman scale set up high enough to where I can look right at it when I'm throwing these charges and weighing and the powder measures and all that, so I don't have to scrunch down. But here, I got to scrunch down to see if I'm getting the scale level, and just a few kernels at a time brings it up to our chosen charge weight of 44.5 grains. So now we're ready to use this rather nice precision funnel kit that has these caliber specific inserts. They're held in with an O-ring. Works really nice. We'll put that right here where everybody can see it. Take the powder charge and pour it in there. Just dumping it in can work in some cases. In some cases where you're using a very bulky powder, extruded powder, that doesn't work. You may even need to have a drop tube attached that makes it a little bit the longer flow. You may even need to vibrate the case to try and get that max type charge in there. In this case, this is a pretty easy one to deal with. Very nice, smooth. And you don't always have to weigh every charge, but I set this up to show everything. So we're throwing a little bit light, weighing it, shows it that it's a little bit light, and using the powder trickler to bring it up to the proper charge weight. And you might have to wind up doing that. It's a good way to do it. It works just fine. Take a look, make sure we've got an empty case here. Yep, we do. Good, I've only charged that one. The funnel. Pour our powder charge in there, 44.5 grains of Varget. Get another case. There we go, very smooth. If you've got a ball type powder, it's really smooth to work there, and you can probably throw those charges without weighing more than one every once in a while just to make sure that nothing has slipped out of adjustment. With the extruded powders, a lot of times I like to weigh, especially if I'm not doing 100 or 200 or 500 cases, which yes, I've done 500 cases on a single stage press before. It takes a little while, but it works. So again, we throw these charges, and then we're going to want to check and make sure that our cases are properly charged. There's just a hint of resistance on that one. We're probably cutting a powder kernel. Okay, we're there. We've got our cases that I wanted to load. They're all charged up. I'll take a look, my visual inspection here. These four are not only charged, but I can see that they're all about the same height and they're very, very similar weight. They should be. We just weighed and measured each one of them, so we're good to go. Those four are now ready to move on to the next step, which would be, of course, seating the bullet. Okay, we've taken a look at how to research our powder, find out what the appropriate powder and appropriate charge weight is for whatever case we're using. In this case, is a .308 Winchester. We've chosen our powder. We've used our powder measure, our scale, and our trickler to charge these cases. And what I want to know is, what are you using in the way of a powder measure, a scale? Are you using a powder trickler? What cartridges are you using it on? And drop us a comment and we'll have a discussion. And that wraps it up.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel, or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you're interested in becoming a professional gunsmith, check out the Sonoran Desert Institute. They've got a degree program, they've got a certificate program, and you can study from home. Learn more at sdi.edu. Thanks again for watching.